My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. It is Sunday, July 20th, 2025. Third-party facilitating venue, Economy Inn at 2301 South Euclid Avenue. The fake sun is present over me at the same venue where I captured the video evidence proving the supernatural environment, referred to as the specific environment, where criminal surveillance is proven to be underway by the people of the state who are in the shoes of the government, the public entity that's engaged in monitoring, criminal monitoring, which is a sex offense committed inside of currently a hotel room at Economy Inn, where the fake sun is present over me. It's currently 3:29 p.m. This is where I captured video at 7:16 a.m. and the fake sun is over me, where the entity is gang stalking by helicopter and commercial planes attributed to the criminal surveillance by the Ontario International Airport. License 9GTD 454 88194X2 9SBU 962 EE94Z99, that's a paper plate. License 7MBP997. All right, and this is the people of the state that are maintaining specific knowledge about the documentation, and every third party that I document by license plate are aware and are exposing themselves to that documentation while maintaining surveillance and also still gang stalking. So you're always mindful of this when you're going to prosecute the government that's engaged in the satanic targeting system, the entity that is basically choosing the people of the state that are being identified, okay? And it is not under any circumstances the sole means of prosecuting the people of the state or the establishment. 3TBG137. meaning because there are 10 vehicles in the parking lot does not mean that there are merely 10 rooms that are occupied. 9DTM 779, or that the license plate reflect those that are even actually staying on the property. License 9HRC 110, 9LLS 453, 5AMV 693. 6UEN 065. DZ 48B36 paper, 93486F4. The same Texas plate, GW08HV. And 8EDV 437. And it is currently, I'm capturing the fake sun right now at 3:31 p.m. when I am on the east side of the property. I'm at the east side of this same property at 10 in the morning, 9:32 in the morning, and I am facing east when the entity has the fake sun over me at this venue at 7:16 a.m. So I'm walking from the east to the west side of the property, and the fake sun moves as I move. You will see it perfectly aimed through the crevice of the ceiling, and light just manifesting in the shade, because all of the light that you see is supposed to be explained by the fake sun. And so this is why the entity engages in the very incriminating and also illogical and demonic method of keeping a fake sun 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 8 hours after you're capturing it at 7 in the morning, directly over the top of my head, at the staircase outside of my hotel room, which is supposed to be the reason for the light that's manifesting at the top of the staircase, where it's a covered structure. So that crevice, that little space between the roofing, is supposed to be the explanation of where the sun is perfectly nuzzled and explaining that light that's on the staircase. That's where the demons that you hear sounding audible activity, monitoring me as a population, are engaged in gang stalking. As I show you, none of this is sunlight, and it's also not the sun that's remaining over Economy N. This is the documentation you'll see on the Google Drive. The fake sun is over room 245. It's over me. I'm facing room 245. And I just captured it over me at the east side of this property, where I'm present capturing the fake sun at 9:32 in the morning, at 10 in the morning. It's over the east side of that property at 7:16 in the morning. And as I walk from the east to the west side, it's back over me facing room 245. And this is the entity that is gang stalking in concert with the demons that are remaining inside of the rooms, gang stalking with the government and the fully exposed system of the sex offense of gang stalking, federal group stalking, monitoring. It is currently, again, 3:33 p.m. This is the documentation maintaining the evidence in order to prosecute the entity that has not only engaged in what is exposed as criminal surveillance in the United States. I'm in the state of California, but it's also relevant to exposing and prosecuting the demons that have conspired to steal property from me, and doing so through what is the use of this corrupt government system that I'm exposing is underway by the government in California, which is designed to create what is a means of criminally defaming an American citizen. And the entity is engaging in what is using criminal defamation for purposes of falsely depicting the character of an American citizen that is subject to criminal surveillance, number one, and targeting amongst unlawful surveillance that the government has not reported to American citizens that we are subject to, and doing it for the purpose of conspiring to murder and kidnap. Kidnapping is pursuant to being kept against your will inside of any state facilitating venue where the government is engaging in gang stalking as well, psychological torture as well, but doing so pursuant to criminal defamation, where the entity is targeting you, like the state of California has with Tracy Banks and Eric Spencer and everyone else that has bore false witness, perjuring themselves in court, where they're engaged in what is both simultaneously targeting me, gang stalking, which I have been prosecuting, documenting, maintaining my own investigation because the police are corrupt, They were at the forefront of the documentation, and so this is my undertaking of that Herculean feat, if you will, but it has been accomplished, okay? And the evidence is published on the internet because that is where you are going to prove that the government is corrupt, number one. So I'm engaged in a prosecution on the World Wide Web, and I'm also going to prosecute in federal court. The entity is engaging in this system of targeting because of the entity that is targeting me knows exactly who I am and has committed to conspiring to steal property that it also knows belongs to me and has known since I was a yay little thing, okay? Property that was never disclosed to me, court hearings never revealed to me, people participating in hearings, stating things about my character they would never say to my face, okay, that I know nothing about, that they're talking about, just making it up while I'm simultaneously being gang stalked in the way that I'm showing at Economy N. These are psychopaths that are targeting together. The entity, as you can, as you're witnessing me enter in and close the hotel door, it's not creating any sort of earthquake. This is how the demons, many of whom I'm documenting by license plate, are engaged in targeting. Just like the demons in in room number 241, the African American couple with the child, their license plate starting with 9SBU 962, gang stalking while they are monitoring with the entity that is stalking in engineered light, stalking under the fake sun, and they're all targeting while mundane things such as opening and closing your hotel door is creating what is sensational activity in my room. This is terrorism that the establishment is going to be prosecuted for, and the establishment is employing the people of the state who have committed the documented act of kidnapping on September 25th, 2020 with the Ontario Police Department. So they are currently maintaining what is domestic terrorism and psychological torture while profiting off of gang stalking patrons who are ceaselessly engaging in that ongoing pattern of conduct and doing so with knowledge also that they're being documented. Literally right now while I'm capturing the documentation, the entity stalking with ongoing amplified noise. This is closing your hotel room door, like the demon in room number 101, 102. Closing your hotel doors is not going to be anything that's going to create any sort of sensation in my hotel room. And it's also not going to be something that's going to cause my hotel room to vibrate. It's not going to be anything that's going to, in other words, disturb my stay. The demons who are gang stalking you are engaged in ongoing harassment and domestic terrorism, while everything that they are doing as demons, the demon you cannot see on that person, the demon is manifesting through all manner of sensational activity when they're walking, sensational activity when they open and close their doors, and possible light activity that coexists when they're pacing all around you, including license 9D-TV821. All right, this is how the entity is together gang stalking with the people of the state who are criminally remaining at this venue, having no constitutional right to do so, and it's state surveillance that the government is going to be prosecuting, and the people of the state are also going to be prosecuted for, and their engagement in this pattern of conduct with the government that has also conspired to steal property from me is also placing defendants like Tracy Banks in federal prison. All right. They are one entity, and the demons are engaging in the bidding of one another while I remain targeted. And this is the criminal conduct that Tracy Banks and the people of the state that have engaged in perjuring themselves in court in order to steal property from me. In anticipation that gang stalking would have created what is evidence to establish mental illness. Again, anticipating that would have relied on my... Again, while the unconstitutionally vague definition of mental illness, the entity is relying on the illusion of it. So the entity is relying on some sort of outward demonstration of behavior where they could gang stalk you, psychologically torture you, capture it on video, and then state, oh, look, there she is. There he is, they're mentally ill, and I'm going to take their property under this secret conservatorship. That's essentially what the entity has conspired to commit, has been engaging in, doing it with corrupt police departments like the Ontario Police Department and the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, sharing in the criminal purpose of criminal defamation, relying on the criminal activity, in other words, of the state, to artificially engineer a criminal record, mental illness, and making up information from the beginning till the end pursuant to criminal activity at the outset. This is why Tracy Banks and every other co-defendant sitting in any courtroom discussing property, anything that belongs to me, and also defaming my character in doing so, they're going to prison. Okay? They're going to federal prison as surely as I'm sitting here and I'm being subject to gang stalking at Economy N. Everybody engaging in kidnapping, they're going to federal prison. Everybody that's already engaged in theft of my property, that's an admitted gang stalker. How else are you stealing property that the owner doesn't even know anything about? And you're engaged in what is defaming my character instead of just asking me if you can have some of my money. Why didn't they go that route? Because the entity is engaged in gang stalking as a government program. And the government is doing this against American citizens who don't even even know their identity with regard to perhaps wealth that you don't know that you are in custody of. And the government targets American citizens in the way that I've shown. And you also know that this is happening nationwide because the specific environment surrounds you. There is no natural environment that consists of the sun, that is a constantly moving gaseous ball of fire, that is not adjacent to buildings, that is not outside sitting next in front of your window, shooting light horizontally like a laser, creating upright shadows and all manner of ridiculous light activity underneath structures and inside of buildings, even absent any windows, even though windows are not an explanation for light shooting inside of Starbucks like you've seen, the tornadoes of light. It is the entity that is engaged in what is targeting in an environment that is not only supernatural, it is absurd. And that absurdity is relevant for your ability to clearly identify it. In the specific environment is where this demonic system of surveillance is underway. And this is what the entity relied on, targeting an American citizen through satanic means, which is relevant to the entity's mental illness, which is capable of being identified at a broad level, meaning a population of mentally ill people. And they are demon possessed as well. The entity that's engaging in this satanic means of targeting people in satanic methods that are, in other words, unheard of, okay? Nobody knows what flying light, where does that even come from? How does that happen? Where does this sound come from? I don't see any plane or helicopter. How is my floor vibrating when I'm on the 3rd floor and the apartment underneath me is vacant? The entity that's engaging what is harassing you and terrorizing you in these satanic means, this is the same entity that's going to be diagnosed and prosecuted for domestic terrorism. And it is designed to result in the false depiction of that targeted individual's character. And because of that level of malice, Tracy Banks with the secret conservatorship and everybody else sitting in court intentionally and with deliberation, knowingly gang stalking me as well, bearing false witness, putting themselves in federal prison for any syllables that they uttered that are defamatory to my name and my character, they're going to prison, okay? It's currently 3:42 p.m. and the fake sun is over me at this venue 8 hours after, and this is why you document on record, because the demon-possessed Satan is a liar, and the entity is relying on what the gang members state. So, but for evidence of proving that I'm surrounded by demons and I'm surrounded by sex offenders and surrounded by psychopaths, but for your ability to see a fake sun that is necessarily not the natural environment, because it's also bringing into question what's over you, like I've stated, in Florida, while I'm documenting at one property, 2301 South Euclid Avenue, yet another venue in the city of Ontario, where the entity is keeping a fake sun specifically over me at one property. And that's exactly what's happening when it's rising at the pool side of the property at 7:16 a.m. and it's setting in alignment, reflecting off of the windows of the same building after 7 p.m. in the evening. That's the same pattern of conduct that I've explained at the outset. Rising on the east side of my person, setting on the west side of my person, where the demon-possessed special needs population, they're not stalking as strangers. They are targeting someone and they know exactly who that targeted individual is, and their confession to that is the fake sun. Okay, is the engineered light, present day and night, is the government stalking directly, which is Providence. The government that's foolish enough to give me a wealth of evidence of targeting in planes and helicopters is the government that has exposed the people of the state, its own co-defendant, and people like Tracy Banks are going to federal prison for it, okay? Tracy Banks did not target me by herself. She targeted me with demons, both that I'm blood related to and those that are fake friends of mine, people like Jason Isaac Fields, Carrie Heberlin, Ariana Elena Lopez, people that I haven't spoken to, by the way, and haven't had a personal relationship with in years, but I wasn't mentally ill when I was 9. When I was 13, and I'm not mentally ill now. And they intentionally went into courts unbeknownst to me, defaming my character, helping Tracy Banks, who has been conspiring against me since I was a child, and she wants to be me. She goes around acting like she is me. She goes around taking responsibility for my intellectual property, which, by the way, she does not have the intellectual capacity to mimic my speech, let alone create the body of evidence that is the P.O.C. and explain it, okay? It is currently 3:44 p.m. It's July 20th, 2025. This is the pattern of conduct. The entity engaging in criminal summoning, monitoring me inside of the bathroom, just like I'm documenting the people of the state doing. The government is always aiding in the, which is criminal facilitation. Remember, gang stalking is not going to be prosecuted only as I'm documenting you in my path while you're creating activity. You are necessarily engaging in what are 2 federal offenses: activity creation and presence. It's all criminal because the government has no warrant or probable cause to stalk me directly or vicariously, nor do it in the the highest, most malicious manner through the commercial actors like Starbucks, like the Ovid Family Community Library, like Economy Inn, like the mobile gas station, where I'm showing you the fake sun over me as I walk over there at 11 a.m. And like you also see in the images that I captured today when I'm walking over during the 3 p.m. hour, and that's the same 2315 South Euclid Avenue. That's stalking by the government in that environment, proving that where a population is sharing presence, a bunch of psychopaths who are demon possessed are merely going around in circles, pacing all around me, while that environment shows that they are maintaining presence, i.e. surveillance. Okay, and they're doing so in that identifiable environment, which is letting you know what's going on in the country, because that's not the sun over you in Florida. The gaseous ball of fire that is not sitting adjacent to buildings, that is in the sky, is in constant movement, is not going to remain over one property like I'm documenting everywhere that I am at, which is identification of the pattern of conduct, which is underway throughout the United States of America. It is currently 3:46 p.m. Again, it's July 20, 2025. This is P.O.C. All right, the kidnapper on September 25th, 2025, he is stalking at the venue, and he is also employed at this venue. This is the same one gang stalking, and he's also gang stalking today while Impossible Light Activity is what he's driving in, and Impossible Light Activity coexists with his parking in front of me at the same time that I open the front door. That's a demon that's engaging in lying in wait. That's a demon that's sitting around listening to every word that I'm documenting on my phone, i.e. monitoring my devices, engaging in surveillance, engaging in psychopathic behavior, lying in wait outside of a woman's hotel room in the event that she makes any sudden movement, like opening the front door, which is when they're not coincidentally, they are engaging in what is stalking with activity, meaning lying in wait, already there, anticipating with regard to crossing path and creating light activity under a fake sun, where then this is license KKB 99. The documentation that I've been, the documentation of this third-party vehicle is the very vehicle identifying the kidnapper from September 25th, 2020. He is the one that's wearing the Adidas shirt. He's the one that's monitoring my vagina inside of this hotel room, and he's engaged in the pattern of conduct. You will see him gang stalking literally by driving in the vehicle into the parking stall in front of my room where the entity intentionally placed me. Okay, for purposes of crossing paths, stalking at the mobile gas station, you're looking at alignment, light activity, ongoing surveillance built into the business. They're going in, mobile's making money while a gang stalker goes into the gas stalls, fills up their gas, stalking in the path with light, monitoring on the communication devices, monitoring me on the internet, and going by. You're talking about gang stalking through mobile as well. And it's still the same when I'm in another room. When I'm in room 123, yes, they are gang stalking in relevant position, but the entity placed me specifically everywhere. That's always the case. The entity is always engaging in what I refer to as steering. When I'm getting on a bus, when I am entering into a room to sit in any venue, the demon possessed are always maintaining a position where they are what is conducive to the most effective manners of monitoring me, maintaining the elements of monitoring and making sure that every angle around me is covered. And this is what I refer to as steering. All of the other options are occupied or full or unavailable, and that is steering into the desirable place for me to sit. And that's anywhere. It looks like it's open for you to choose. You're not choosing. The demons have already chosen where they would like you to sit. In other words, your available options. This is built into the pattern of conduct of gang stalking demons who are obsessively stalking you. Okay, the entity is doing the same thing with a hotel room. Okay, and any and everywhere with regard to going in the grocery store where you're waiting in line to pay, where you are going to even the possibility of going to the bathroom inside of any venue. The entity is always maintaining and stalking with regard to anticipating your steps. This is why you're documenting gang stalking by those that are wearing police uniforms. They're engaging in all, you know all about this. So then you're getting to the demons that wear police uniforms engaging in this. You're going to prison. Everybody knows the crazy that you don't want seen. They see it, and you're going to federal prison. All right. And that's also an unlawful threat while that psychopath is dressing up like it's Halloween every day in a police uniform, wearing a badge. Okay, everybody knows that. This is not a secret, and this is what's built into the inherently threatening conduct of stalking as a police department. Okay, this is that mental illness that is no longer closeted, especially while the demons wear police uniforms. Lying in wait is what this demon is doing. License KKB99, documenting the fake sun reflecting off of his windshield in front of my room, both in the morning and the afternoon. And he is gang stalking as I walk out right now. I also want to add these license plates: license 9GSV791. License 9EOM903, gang stalking at mobile at 2315 South Euclid Avenue. And the entity is keeping the fake sun over me as I walk right across, and the fake sun moves in step with me. This is the same pattern of conduct when I am in any mode of transportation, which is showing that there's no exception to the entity that is engaged in criminal surveillance and gang stalking. Somebody that claims, well, I'm a Baptist and I lead Bible study every Sunday, and I watch all the newborn babies because everybody trusts me, and I would never do anything like that. It's audible activity. If I get in that person's car, they're a demon and they're gang stalking all the same. There is no exception. Okay, and the entity's engaging in this pattern of conduct, and it's not different. Excuse me, it's the exception to what they are doing. When the demons who are gang stalking drive off from the mobile 9EOM903, the fake sun doesn't remain over their vehicle as they drive on the 60 freeway, as they are driving on Euclid Avenue, as they go to the grocery outlet, which is north of this hotel, and they drive off. The fake sun remains over me at this venue. Okay, which is speaking to, again, the fake sun is documentation of who is the target, and it's exposing who is the stalker. Okay, big picture, what city and state am I in? Because that's the public entity that's gang stalking. All right, everybody else represent the people of the state and all the ways in which that pattern of conduct is underway commercially, no matter where you're at, no matter where you live, no matter what mode of travel. And the entity has engaged in what is very highly foolish, but it's providence for you as you are witnessing the truth of what I stated at the outset. I do not have any intention or plans, and never did I have any plans, to waste my own time and just make up fables. That's what demons do, by the way. Demons do that. Satan does that. There's all kind of titles about why people do, and all sorts of harms that they haven't healed from, and traumas that they suffered from. At the end of the day, you need to understand that it is a spiritual source behind everything, and everything that is not of Christ Jesus is of the devil. It is that exclusive, and demons are the ones that make up fables. Demons are the ones that lie for no reason. Demons are the ones that make up extraordinarily hyperbolic, like super unrealistic. They're the ones that do it for fun, just for fun. It's relevant to what's wrong with their minds. You see it at varying levels of degrees. Those that just lie about, I was out with my girlfriend last night, and because they don't want to be honest, and those that lie about what they did with the body after they murdered that person. Okay, the entities engaging in denying that they murdered that person in the first place. Those that engage in denying that they murdered that person, when you are watching them and you let them watch you watch them on camera, and everyone see, and they can see their own face and their fingerprints on the weapon, and they will still sit in your face and lie. Those are demons. Okay, the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct, and it is spiritual. And at the outset, I stated what was the purpose of my documentation. Yes, it is to protect myself. Yes, it is to make sure that it's known. Everything that the entity lied to me about, I'm documenting everything, and you will find the lie 9 times out of 10 in my very documentation. Okay, I don't have any time to lie. I don't have any interest in lying. I fully intended on minding my business. That's why I went to law school. I was going to get my nice little quiet job, work at a law firm, make my few $100,000 a year, maybe 2 houses, but I'm not greedy. Have my own, mind my business, in other words. But the Lord had other plans. Okay, this is none of my working, none of my doing, and I would not have asked for it. And anybody else claiming that they're a targeted individual, it's something that's going to be proven, and you cannot make it up. Okay, you don't have to exaggerate. Okay, you can't make the police stalk you from place to place. You can't make the fake sun remain over you. You can't make the police follow you around from place to place in helicopter. You can't force the city to keep commercial planes around you. You can't force a bunch of weirdos in inexplicable light to engage in what is going back and forth all around you, and everything about their behavior, including the sound of everything they're doing, having some sort of cartoon character to it, which is revealing to their mental. You can't make all of these things happen. When you are actually a targeted individual, it will be proven, and that is also relevant. It's also relevant to anybody else that wants to act like, which is also relevant to mental illness. Anybody that wants to claim that they're a targeted individual and they're not, that's a spirit. All right, anybody that wants to claim this is nothing that you would vote for or ask for in the first place, but it is spiritually rooted. But I also want to state, I said what I said, I meant that. Because even when, because this entity that's engaged in criminal surveillance is also inclined to engage in targeting someone that is of their own clan. The demon's targeting another one, perhaps some sort of reason why they're targeting an enemy, somebody that's a threat to them for one way or another, somebody that betrayed them as a betrayed or broke some sort of satanic rule or whatever, and they kill their own. That's also a spirit as well. So I'm not contradicting, and I'm not going to take that back. It's a spirit that's engaging in what is gang stalking, targeting American citizens, and these demons target each other. Okay, that's also relevant. But what the demon possessed are targeting those for a specific reason. Yes, in the physical, it has to be money. Okay, yes, in the physical, it happens to be money and property that these demons worship. Okay, but it's spiritually rooted. They would do it for a free bottle of Jergen's lotion. They would do it for nothing. There are people that are not getting any part of my property that I don't know when I'm in Pasadena, California. They're not getting any stake in my property. Neither is Tracy Banks. But my point is that the demon possessed are doing what is in their nature. This is wicked. They're wicked. These are people they're demons. That they engage in what is evil conduct. They're compelled to. These are the works of darkness. These are the deeds of death. This is what they do. You engage in things of the dead when you're dead. These are just demons, okay? And yes, they will do it for a large amount of money, and they'll also do it for nothing because they're wicked, because they hate Christ Jesus. It is spiritual in nature first, okay? And then you're looking at the physical manifestations of how that is working itself out in the physical. Nonetheless, it's currently 3:57 p.m. I just want to be clear, the kidnapper himself, this is merely my associating the already documented license plate with the kidnapper himself, watching him gang stalking, lying in wait. This is indeed a sex offender who then is impregnating his baby mama or wife, whatever their status is together. This is what the people of the state do, gang stalking as a family. This is what the demon-possessed do while they are demons targeting as a whole family unit, and it's not even about each other. It's about the targeted individual. So I just want to be clear. Under no circumstances is anything superseding the pattern of conduct, and Satan is always relying on that superficial veneer to rebut what someone would claim about being targeted. Oh, well, why would they be targeting you? She's got a newborn baby. Ain't nobody concerned about you. Look, she's breastfeeding. Who in their right mind is going to be more concerned? A demon. That's who. And the specific environment is always, by the way, and logic also dictates that that's not going to supersede anything. The fake sun is supernatural. So I don't care if you're walking your dog. They're doing it in the specific environment. And the fact that the sun is sitting there for 11 hours is speaking to what is going to supersede. It is only a corrupt entity that has always relied on its own corruption and its identity to silence someone that is subject to this system. And that is entirely illogical. That doesn't even make sense. That's basically disregarding evidence in favor of something else that's not even legally relevant. There's an outright failure of syllogism there. Why would you disregard this obviously suspicious feature within an investigation just because they're breastfeeding and that's supposed to be something that's impossible? No, it's not. And that's not how you conduct any investigation. There is nothing, in other words, and there is no person, there is no identity and no position that makes anyone outside of suspicion because of what the government is doing. Period. It is currently 3:59 p.m. I want to make sure I document that. I'll go ahead and take a screenshot so you can identify who it is that I'm capturing. And this is, again, the kidnapper that's engaged in what is monitoring, stalking a woman, monitoring my vagina. Him and his baby mama are monitoring my vagina together. And you will see in the physical, the two that are ostensibly in business together, maintaining a hotel property where they're, as a family unit, engaging in what is the American dream. These are some gang stalking, likely immigrants who are engaged in domestic terrorism and psychological torture and the sex offense of monitoring my genitalia together, okay, while they are with child or anticipating to be with child. It's actually very perverted what Satan has done with the family, what Satan has done with those who would like to be referred to as men, those who would like to be referred to as women, even the maternal mothers. With also those under the age of majority, children, perverted, all manner of dysfunction and criminality, corruption, the defilement of those that are of this condition engaging in the system. And this is just the reality. But nonetheless, it's currently 4 p.m. It's July 20th, 2025. I remain at third-party facilitating venue Economy Inn, and this is P.O.C. All right, it is currently 10:15 p.m. License KKB99. This is the documented kidnapper acting with the Ontario Police Department, including specifically Corporal Kemp, KEMP, and A. Morris of the Ontario Police Department. And there's also a third officer that engaged in kidnapping at this venue where they are still gang stalking to date, still engaged in domestic terrorism, engaged in a real-time ceaseless sex offense, and doing so with impunity. So this is relevant to the mental illness. It's the impunity with which raging psychopaths and violent sex offenders engage in gang stalking an American citizen, gang stalking a woman, while keeping that woman's evidence of you violating her, monitoring her vagina, stalking her, and the entity engages in, which is the national security threat of the demons that you need to know surround you under the fake sun, wherever you are in the country. Engaging in this criminal surveillance is also relevant to why third parties like Tracy Banks and Jason Fields are going to federal prison. Okay, the entity is filling my hotel room with what is impossible audible activity, as though someone is in my room stomping. Right, that's the audible activity method. You're aware of the impossible light activity, the multiple shadows. That's the light activity that fills my hotel room. That's the light activity that fills the venue. Okay, the entity is engaged in surveillance inside of a hotel room, which is a sex offense committed by a public entity. And that public entity has the same exact mental illness of the demon-possessed third parties who are stalking by paying for a hotel room to keep me under surveillance. They are obsessed with my vagina. They're obsessed with everything that I do, what I think about, what I consume, both with regard to what I eat and what I'm looking at, what I document, which is relevant to what I think about. This is obsession by the demon-possessed who are engaged in criminal monitoring. You need to know everything about their demented mind state, about their demented behaviors, and the closeted mental illness, which is no longer closeted to you. But I'm exposing to you about the obsession of the demons who are stalking and the ways in which the psychopathic pattern of conduct is exposing that entity to a prosecution, civilly and criminally. All right, 10:17 p.m., nobody walking outside is going to create the sound of stomping inside of my hotel room. Nobody underneath my hotel room is creating the noise of stomping inside of my hotel room. The entity is engaged in what is activity creation. And it's another, again, the entity that engages in this pattern of conduct, what's ordinarily designed to terrorize and harass, which is what it's doing. You're going to prosecute for that. But this is supposed to psychologically torture and scare scare the crap out of an ordinary target individual. You're going to prosecute for what is mental illness by stalkers, okay? So because you're so psychopathic and you're stalking with the sound of what is impossible to occur, footsteps stomping in my hotel room, you're doing so in light that is impossible to naturally occur, light that's just manifesting on the wall, creating your shadow surrounding while you're stalking another person. In other words, trying to scare them and psychologically torture them while you're stalking them. And remember, they're stalking the federal prosecutor. That's also relevant to the threat that they pose as psychopaths and sex offenders, stalking all together on behalf of the government that has a pattern of kidnapping, including at this venue. Okay, this is relevant to the entity that's going to be diagnosed for severe mental illness. Today, they're acting like raging psychopaths that have no consequences anywhere in the near future, like nothing is going to happen, like medical professionals are not going to subject them to routine examinations, like there's not going to be diagnoses made, adjudications made on their sickness, their mental sickness, and their criminal conduct relevant to convictions. And that's exactly what's relevant to the prosecution. This is why you document now, and this is relevant with regard to informing federal policy. This is relevant to prosecuting the entity that's engaged in kidnapping, that's engaged in what is criminal summoning, that's engaged in what is harassing and stalking under the fake sun all day long, including those that wear Ontario Police Department uniforms. They share the same exact mental illness, the same exact sexual violence, okay? The same exact impunity. These demons are even more threatening and psychopathic because they are convinced that wearing that badge is some sort of protection. It's some sort of mask. I'm going to take that badge. I'm going to prosecute. I'm taking that position. That Ontario Police Department is not going to exist, and that is a message to everyone in the country that's exhibiting and sharing that same mental illness. The demons that are listening together, stalking with the Ontario Police Department, sharing mental illness with the demons of the Ontario Police Department, including state actors like C. Hazelwood, a mentally ill psychopath, like L. Edwards, a mentally ill psychopath who's obsessed with my vagina, and then under the fake sun is on video stalking, and a gang stalking police officer engages in what is stalking you by criminal summoning.
This is the same mental illness that's surrounding me by the sex offenders who are checking out, that is providing evidence against themselves in the state by checking out a hotel room at Economy Inn, where they're all psychopaths in engineered light, stalking as a city-wide effort, okay? This is the entity that is sharing a mental illness, while the documented state actors whose mental illness you know, and now that all the entity that gang stalks by the Ontario Police Department, they're merely identifying those who are suffering from mental illness, because you literally know what is their personality defect already. You know their criminal conduct already. You know what is their psychopathic disorder that they don't want to be identified or recognized. You know their condition as demon-possessed people, while they are gang stalking with the sex offenders, checking out hotel rooms at 2301 South Euclid Avenue, slamming doors, which is audible activity in engineered light, while sex offenders are listening to a woman, keeping her under surveillance in a hotel room. And while the entity stalks with amplified audible activity, it's relevant to diagnosing mental illness. While the entity engages in what is stalking and impossible light activity, it's relevant to diagnosing their mental illness. While the entity engages in what is stalking as a whole population, it's relevant to diagnosing their mental illness. And the entity that engages in this criminal conduct, which is psychologically harmful and psychopathic, they're going to be subjected to what is not only a criminal prosecution, but it's going to be mandated with regard to the mental diagnosis, the mind state, which is brought at the forefront of every documented gang stalker who's going to be prosecuted, while the government targets with American citizens, like the sex offenders that fill the city of Ontario in the state of California, gang stalking at Economy Inn and 2301 South Euclid Avenue at 10:21 p.m. This is documentation of psychological torture that Economy Inn, the establishment, is engaging in, while all of its gang stalking patrons are up in the middle of the night sharing an obsession over my vagina, sharing an obsession of everything that I say and do, exhibiting severe mental illness even while they're hostile to their sexual violence and their criminal conduct and their mental illness being detailed in order to prosecute and diagnose them. Because only a mentally ill person would also then be hostile to the evidence about their decisions to stalk a federal prosecutor and any other American citizen on whose behalf I'm advocating, okay? It's currently 10:22 p.m. This is Economy Inn that's engaged in what is a sex offense, maintaining the elements of monitoring and going to the extent, remember, the entity is monitoring while I'm inside of my hotel room. I'm listening to music, I'm watching television, I'm eating, washing my hands, activity creation, I take a shower. This is all activity creation that I'm creating. So the demon-possessed, the psychopaths, the stalkers themselves go to the added extent to fill my hotel room with that which is never naturally occurring. That is going to the extent to terrorize and psychologically torture with the earthquake conduct of a demon that's slamming their hotel room door so hard, so powerfully, that it's creating a vibration under my feet, that it's heard into the depths of my hotel room. I have a hotel room door as well, and it's not creating any sort of earthquake. It's not anything that's going to disturb anybody else around you. Also, the sun doesn't sit over one building, as you know, for 12 hours as well. This is context. The demons that like to engage in terrorism, these are the same demons that are going to be prosecuted, and their names are not going to be provided any means of privacy. There's not going to be any secrecy. There's not going to be any agreement to keep concealed those who are exposed as sex offenders, acting like maniacs today, and then going to be crying about and complaining about the exposure, about the maniacs that everyone's going to know that they are, because they're a national security threat. They're violent sex offenders, okay, that the Department of Justice is going to be made aware of because of the threat that they are to women, to American citizens, to themselves, to the public, okay, to children, while they're gang stalking. Okay, the entity sharing an ongoing violence while they're doing so while I remain inside of the hotel, and the entity engaging in that is doing so with the ongoing documented impunity. It's relevant to every gang stalking police officer. It's relevant to the gang stalking city of Ontario. It's relevant to the entity that's committed kidnapping. Kidnappings. It's relevant to the entity that's gang stalking. You're not forgetting about the entity gang stalking, calling it police training on Euclid Avenue and C Street. Where is the fake sun at 7:15 a.m. when I'm remaining at Economy Inn? And you're mindful of. Remember how they were smiling and laughing. Remember how they were taking it as a joke while I am confronting psychopaths who are maniacs, who get away with murder and call it a day's work of police work. They call it a day's work with the Ontario Police Department. They get away with kidnapping while they're engaged in surveillance and they call it law enforcement. And you're mindful of the entity that's exhibiting severe mental illness while that mental illness is dressing itself up like the Ontario Police Department. Like I'm documenting day in and day out off of one block, that's C Street and Euclid Avenue, not going beyond G Street and not going beyond C Street on Euclid Avenue. But yet it's remaining for the duration of the day from sunrise until sunset at Economy Inn at 2301 South Euclid Avenue. Do not forget what the Ontario Police Department and the Ontario International Airport is doing. You remember those airlines, Delta Airlines, Alaska Airlines, Southwest Airlines, UPS, that's also gang stalking me here at the Economy Inn, where the fake sun is now remaining from sunrise until sunset. This is the entity that's already surrounded with evidence of its criminal activity and its severe mental illness, its special needs status. Also, the fact that they are a threat to the public while they would stalk and monitor and surveil as a population, a community, a group, a public entity, a woman, let alone a woman that's documenting it. And they're keeping that evidence under surveillance. In fact, it infuriates the sex offender. That's what's relevant when you're mindful of those who are going to be prosecuted with this evidence, and it includes the Ontario Police Department. Okay? It is currently 10:25 p.m. It's still Sunday, July 20, 2025, and this is P.O.C. License plate 9ROX793. This is a white BMW at 5:35 p.m. I want to add that to the record as well. The entity engaged in gang stalking. This third-party license plate again, 9R0X793. All right, the people of the state in rooms 240, that is the nearest room where the entity is maintaining ongoing heightened volume of a psychopath that's stalking, and they're stalking with amplified noise pursuant to what is seeking to interfere with internet connection. This is federal stalking under Title 18. The entity is doing so in engineered light that's covering the hotel building. These are sex offenders that are altogether demons who know what you're doing on the opposite side of the wall. This is relevant to the demonic activity that the gang stalking entity is engaging in. So while I'm logging onto the Wi-Fi, the entity is indeed gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport. This is why you saw Alan D. Wapner's picture above the toilet where he's monitoring my vagina. That's why you saw that, because the Ontario International Airport is sharing in federal stalking with the sex offenders who are maintaining stalking presence in the adjacent hotel rooms. Now, the entity is engaging what is amplified audible activity using a demon that is slamming a hotel door with regard to trying to interfere with my Wi-Fi access. This is federal stalking conduct that's relevant to surveillance on the venue of the internet, relevant to what is the use of my communication device. The entity is doing so pursuant to what is documentation as well. The entity repeating this again at 10:38 p.m. And I just want to go ahead and make sure that I can see. Let's see. Yeah, you do have what is a male that's gang stalking, pacing, walking by, sharing in the elements of monitoring while a demon is slamming the door. But remember, the entity that's engaging what is amplifying plane activity when the plane is already miles away are the demons that are stalking with the amplified noise of sounds that are reminiscent of what's supposed to be appropriate at a hotel, even though it's not appropriate, the time, the noise level, the impossibility that it's going to create a earthquake or anything. But nonetheless, the activity creation is appropriated to the type of venue. All right, so you'll have demons slamming books and beating on desks when they're gang stalking in the library, okay? You'll have demons that are gang stalking as they create coffee drinks at Starbucks. You'll have demons that are engaging what is slamming hotel doors and doing so incessantly as I'm documenting, okay? It's currently 10:39 p.m. The people of the state in room 241, the people of the state in room, oh, there's no room actually there. They put me next to a closet. So this is speaking to what is necessarily an employee of the venue, KKB99, license 9GTD454. Those are the only demons that have access to the nearest room next to me. And again, that's not the explanation for the amplified sound of door closures that are slamming. But you're going to use your common sense as human beings that are subject to demons who are targeting you with supernatural means of maintaining noise and maintaining light. So no, the federal government is aware that you're not hallucinating and making up anything. You're going to prosecute based on psychological torture, while sex offenders who are mentally ill are stalking you in the ways in which I'm documenting inside of the hotel. You do have a third party that was stalking in the path, and doing so, they're walking in engineered light. They're stalking me while the entity is maintaining ongoing amplified audible activity. I want to make sure I document, again, license E359N0 and also license 22485X3 in case I did not document, and license 9FHV469. There are also third parties that are present at the venue while the entity is engaged in Title 18 federal stalking. And the Ontario International Airport just amplified plane activity. That was 3 minutes ago, the moment that I started recording this. They are sharing in Title 18 federal stalking along with the demons that are stalking at the hotel. So this is just surrounding in your mind's eye, these are psychopaths. So if you can imagine like an animation, bulging eyes, foaming at the mouth, veins poking out of the forehead, disheveled hair, and raging conduct. This is what is the mental illness by the demons that are gang stalking, okay? This is relevant to the conduct that they engage in. It is speaking to the entity that is engaging in that conduct. Mobile is gang stalking with the demon that's coming out of the room. So let me go ahead and get his license plate. The mobile, remember mobile at 2315. This is why the entity is not going to be limited to business hours, because that's exactly what is the concerted conduct that the people of the state engage in. The demon at mobile crosses path, drives onto the grounds of the gas station, while this demon, gang stalking with a minor child, exits to engage in the pattern of conduct, license 90TM779, and is doing so with a minor child. This is a male, okay? He's engaging in the pattern of conduct, sharing in what is a sex offense and monitoring a woman, stalking a woman, engaging in what is monitoring a woman's vagina, while he is in custody of a minor child, engaging in terrorism together. He's acting in sync with the demons. Remember, they're not getting engaging in any meeting before. These are demons that are acting in concert with one another, okay? So this is why you have somebody driving in the parking lot of mobile, where the entity put me in the room in alignment to mobile on purpose, and doing so with regard to that level of synchronicity, okay? Timing, in sync behavior with regard to the elements of monitoring, all right? They are all engaged in federal stalking with the Ontario International Airport. All right, it's currently 10:42 p.m. The entity that is engaging in what is using amplified audible noise inside of the hotel room pursuant to obstruction of justice. This criminal conduct is disbanding the Ontario Police Department, in addition to their repeated acts of kidnapping while gang stalking with the people of the state. These are the demons that they engage in and rely on criminal summoning. These are the demons that engage in kidnapping with them. And the Ontario Police is being disbanded while I'm documenting the same population gang stalking together, okay? And the Ontario Police is monitoring now while the people of the state are gang stalking. 90TM779, that's the entity that is crossing path and monitoring with the population while they're on the property crossing path, driving off the property, okay? It's currently 10:48 p.m. This is P.O.C. That is a sex offender that's monitoring my vagina. I already documented them before. Engineer light remains in my hotel room, remains outside, and stalkers are maintaining concerted methods of activity creation. And this is, again, mental illness that is shared by a population that's gang stalking together. And literally their mental illness is identified and witnessed. It's exhibited through the impossible light activity, through the amplified audible activity, through the conduct of what are a bunch of stalkers that never intended that they'd be identified as such. And they're all together engaging in an ongoing campaign of stalking one person, which is entirely pathetic. Okay, this is what Satan has, and you need to be aware of it. So that's what's relevant to why I'm also publishing all of the prosecution of the state of California on the internet. Okay, and exposing and documenting sex offenders and demon-possessed people, because there's no race lines, there's no economic or status differentiation between the people who are targeting. I've been in the suburbs in San Diego. I've been in the so-called ghetto in Rialto and San Bernardino. There's no difference. And that's what you need to recognize. Okay? The entity is gang stalking by strangers who are obsessed with my vagina, and so are my blood relatives who are gang stalking me the same. It's the same demonic spirit, and they are gang stalking as an entity, and it includes the government. Every level of corruption in the city of Ontario is hereby exposed. Okay? It's currently 10:44 p.m. just want to make sure that I document that the entity is engaging in this while I am uploading the pattern of conduct onto the podcast. So I'm going to add this to that. The entity is also engaging in what is relevant for identifying what is that referred to as. It's referred to as harassment. It's referred to as domestic terrorism, while a bunch of stalkers who are engaging in that level of targeting someone and also at the same time trying to make it appear as though they're just, going about their business and doesn't know the target individual, is not addressing the target individual, neither is any of that necessary. And that's also violence. Understand, it's referred to as psychological torture. Okay, the entity is engaged in all manner of psychopathic behavior, which is shown through the impossible methods of targeting inside of the hotel room through noise and light, and the government that's engaging in things such as stalking with planes and helicopters, which is also included in what is the methods of harassment. And then you have the sex offenders and the psychopaths, who are the demon-possessed people of the state, who keep their back to you, who don't address you, who you don't know personally. They're sharing in what is violence as an entity. That's the entity that's going to be prosecuted for the psychological the psychological harms, that psychological warfare, where they're gang stalking you, and they are doing so while they're filled with demons. And this is relevant to the mental illness of that entity that's engaging in the act of domestic terrorism in the U.S. Federal Group Stalking and Monitoring. So I just want to make sure that the entity is fully detailed, that the entity is fully documented as I'm giving these details. And this is relevant to the establishment. Economy ends engaged in federal stalking under Title 18. Its employees are engaged in federal stalking under Title 18. And its employees are co-defendants with all of the demons that are paying for hotel rooms to engage in gang stalking. They can state, well, they were headed to Texas en route, but they were present at the venue in the specific environment to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, and that's exactly what you're going to be prosecuted for and as a domestic terrorist. All right. It's currently 10:46 p.m. Mobile at 2315 South Euclid Avenue is engaging in what is federal group stalking and monitoring on a ceaseless basis, and is engaging in what is federal stalking as well with the people of the state that are engaging in that sex offense together. This is the mobile corporation that's engaging in what is domestic terrorism and is a sex offense, while companies are going to be treated as the persons that they are under law, where the government relies on commercial actors like Mobile and like Economy Inn and like Starbucks, etc., to engage in surveillance, which is domestic terrorism, and psychological torture. This is the malicious system pursuant to public corruption, where the people of the state are gang stalking. Okay, I have referred to it as commercial stalking, where the mailman is engaged in what is gang stalking you. That's a means of commercial stalking, and it's the highest level of malice, which is relevant to mental illness. It's psychopathic. Okay, while the demon-possessed do this and this is the mask that the government relies on to engage in its own criminal conduct, doing so through the civilian population. And it's entirely demented, while a demon-possessed population altogether engages in that as one. It's 10:48 p.m. This is P.O.C. and this is relevant to obstruction of justice. All right, the people of the state, this is the sex offender documented with her children gang stalking room 244, and her room is not even attached to the, not that it doesn't matter. The entity engages in amplification. This is demonic. But this is the third party that's gang stalking and maintaining the exact same presence in the path as I walk outside. And this is, again, following seconds after the ongoing repeated acts of amplified sound of a door slamming. And this is, again, at a escalated level of volume. So the entity is doing so. There's no hotel room on the opposite side of my hotel room. There's a closeted door which only employees can access. And this third party that is stalking in the path while that amplified audible activity is occurring is the demon that's in room 244. She's a third party female, documented her gang stalking with the entity monitoring in the bathroom. She's identified as a sex offender engaging in the perpetual sex offense with her, either her son or some male that she's with. It could be her adult son, her teenage son, I don't know, but he's engaging in the sex offense with this lady that's outside who is gang stalking. I want to document that. That's just speaking to the images that I'm capturing. I'm capturing what is relevant positioning while the entity is maintaining what is ongoing audible activity and repeatedly throwing off my ability to log onto the Wi-Fi. So this is for Economy N. Economy Inn, their Wi-Fi network, I will go ahead and take a screenshot of it so you can see it. Economy Inn's engaged, and every third party is engaged in federal stalking. The City of Ontario, just like the Ontario City Wi-Fi, the Ontario Ovid Family Community Library, the library Wi-Fi, the entity is engaged in surveillance using the Wi-Fi. This is an easy means of prosecution as well. The entity is engaged in surveillance through communication devices on the internet with the people of the state who are gang stalking in the specific environment. And the Wi-Fi that the city provides, that any venue provides, such as Starbucks, they're monitoring on those Wi-Fi networks. And this is what Economy Inn is doing. So I'm going to go ahead and document. I'll take a screenshot of it because this is the Wi-Fi network that the entity is interfering with my access while I am, first of all, number one, a patron, and second of all, for the criminal purpose of monitoring with the intent to obstruct justice. And they're engaging in ongoing harassment and domestic terrorism, stalking with amplified noise and engineered light as I try to log on to the Wi-Fi, okay? It's currently 10:56 p.m. This is the demon in room 244. It's a Caucasian female. She's wearing a red top. She's engaged in what is stalking in the path while she is having a smoke and engineered light. You'll see the shadow of the gate appearing at a distance. Both it's on the ground and it's on the closet door, which is not a hotel room. And you will see a closet, excuse me, not a closet door, but a hotel door on the opposite side of the fire extinguisher. That hotel room door is not going to cause any sort of impact or audible activity as like amplified in volume inside of my hotel room. This is a method of what is stalking presence in the engineered light, which you can see in the picture that I'm capturing at 10:53 p.m. And she is engaging in what is stalking in the path. She's right there standing in the engineered light. The shadow of the gates on the floor. She is present while I am opening the door immediately after being, again, subject to ongoing harassment with the extraordinarily loud use of the method of activity as opposed to plain activity. The entity is using an incessant slamming of a door inside of my room. This is what the City of Ontario is doing when using aircrafts, using amplified traffic. The 60 freeway heard inside of the hotel room. Equally impossible to hear. The demons are monitoring in the engineered light, okay? So that's what's relevant with regard to the images. And I'm taking a screenshot of the Wi-Fi. This is surveillance on the internet that the entity is engaged in, okay? It's currently 10:57 p.m. This is P.O.C. This is criminal summoning. The moment that I access the Wi-Fi at Economy Inn in engineered light. License KKB 99. And license, remember the employee license 9STD 454, excuse me, 456. That's the entity that's engaged in surveillance, aware of everything that I'm publishing on the internet about the gang stalking government. And that's the criminal misuse of sirens and emergency vehicles to keep little old me under surveillance. Audible activity in engineered light is accomplishing what is surveillance on communication devices and with regard to criminal monitoring. This is what the City of Ontario is engaging in the engineered environment, where the entity keeps the fake sun over this hotel, where that same City of Ontario is engaging in surveillance, where that City of Ontario is flying over my hotel room with commercial planes. The City of Ontario is engaged in surveillance, and you just heard what is criminal summoning. That is the criminal use of sirens and light activity while the government engages in the elements of monitoring. And those are also what you know are demons manifesting while they engage in light activity, audible activity with simultaneity to what I'm doing on my device. That's the City of Ontario, and it is reminiscent of the demons that drive ambulances in Ontario, gang stalking, American Medical Response. I am at what is 2301 South Euclid Avenue. American Medical Response, the City of Ontario, is engaged in Title 18 federal stalking. Okay, it's currently 11:10 p.m. where the entity is near me sounding sirens. That's speaking to, again, an emergency vehicle. The federal government will be aware about where I'm located and the what I'm documenting with regard to knowledge about what the city is engaging in at the time the city is engaging in it. And it's providing context about my documentation and how the government, the City of Ontario, is engaging in ongoing surveillance around me, surveilling me, and recognizing how the environment that's all around is not random, but it's actually with regard to very detailed demonic behavior centered around me. While you are looking at traffic, shopping, venues that are open and closed for business, and the maintenance, the detailed, diligent, and demonic maintenance of elements of monitoring, including demons, sitting around in ambulances, stalking me and keeping me under surveillance, listening to everything and monitoring my vagina as well. Okay, American Medical Response is not in the business of keeping vaginas in private residences and private spaces under surveillance. It's an illegitimate interest, and it's entirely unlawful to do that in concert with corrupt law enforcement agencies like American Medical Response is with the City of Ontario. They're doing so pursuant to what is monitoring my access to the Wi-Fi, which is federal stalking that Economy N is engaging in, and every gang stalking demon, including the demon in room 244, who is a basis of what is presence and engineered light, while the entity is harassing me. And the method of audible activity wasn't a slamming door this time, it was the sound of sirens. It's P.O.C. It's 11:11 p.m. and the sirens occur at the moment that I am successful logging on and the Wi-Fi does not log me off. This is when the sirens sound, okay? Before, the entity was, every time I log on, slamming of doors. And there is, again, the entity is engaging what is amplification. You're making a separation in your mind necessarily in order to understand the illusion that demons are presenting before you. You see the plane, but the sound of the plane is separate from what you are looking at. Okay? And how do you know that? Because under other circumstances, when the plane is not right there and you're automatically making a connection between the plane activity that you hear and the plane that you see, when I'm documenting the same circumstances in a different manner, meaning the plane is at a distance away, meaning it's so far I have to zoom in order to show you that a plane just flew over, with regard to the sound of the plane activity, but yet the plane is at a distance away that it's not possible that that plane could be heard inside of my hotel room. These are demons, and that's demonic. It's relevant to what is the illusions that demons are presenting to you, okay? The entity is engaged in gang stalking right now, walking by my hotel room and creating what is amplified stomping, as though, again, the demons are all Hercules, and they create what is the ongoing sound of foot stomp, yeah, they're all able to engage in what is making extraordinarily loud noise inside of the hotel room when they close their doors, when they're walking, their shadows are moving all over, and when they're crossing path and checking into hotel rooms to engage in gang stalking with license KKB 99, and again license 9GTD 456. That's the 454. That's the correct license plate. What you'll see at 11:13 p.m. is a gang stalker at the night window of Economy N. He's wearing a black backpack. He's wearing white, gray, and black shorts, like army, like the camouflage style, and he's wearing a backwards cap, and he's wearing a black, there you go, thank you. This is the demon that's stalking in the path, and while crossing path inside of my while I'm inside of my hotel room, while I'm documenting right now, this demon is creating sensational activity. Now remember, this demon is just in the path. The demons are engaged in gang stalking, so any person, and you're not going to have to this is how an entity is trying to drive someone to a brink of losing your wits. You don't need to do all that. The demon's are already surrounded with evidence. You're documenting in a specific environment. These are gang stalkers who are obsessively consumed with you, and they do so as a group. A demon walking by your room, a demon stalking in the path by keeping their back to you, and there's more than one of them sharing in the elements monitoring together. The entity is engaging in what is including the same demon that's crossing path or having a multiplicity of them. That's not for you to try to decipher or figure out. The entity is engaging in what is, oh wait, let me show you this, multiple shadows while this demon's stalking in the parking lot. He's got 3 shadows all around his person while he is stalking in the parking lot. That's the impossible light activity, which you'll see, and also the audible activity and the sensational activity while I'm inside of my room. And it's not for you to decide or to figure out rather who is the government using to walk by your hotel room or walk by you and create an earthquake at the same time that they're walking by you. That's referred to sensational activity. It's another method of monitoring. It's domestic terrorism and psychological torture. You will see the images of this gang stalker who is a sex offender monitoring with Economy N. The business of Economy N is built into this criminal conduct, meaning the gang stalkers are adding to the profits of this company that's monitoring me as well through its employees and the establishment itself, the fake sun remaining over the building, which is providing a place for the government to keep me under surveillance. The business itself, the employees, the people of the state are engaging in that pattern of conduct. This is a federal RICO case, okay? In addition, the entity is subject to federal prison. These are kidnappers that they're still engaging in domestic terrorism as I am present in 2025 to remind everybody about why kidnapping is, as an entity, The entity is engaged in kidnapping as an entity while they're gang stalking. That's relevant for what is disbanding corrupt law enforcement agencies. And that's also relevant for what is federal prison for everybody having anything to do with taking away the liberty and freedom of an American citizen that a government is keeping under surveillance outside of any sort of constitutional authority. You're going to prison for that. You are the one that summoned the police there that are gang stalking. You're going to prison. You're the ones that are there sharing and monitoring at the same time while the police are there and they commit a kidnapping. You're going to federal prison. The entity is engaging in the pattern of conduct enabling kidnapping by corrupt agencies like the Ontario Police. And this is the type of psychopathic behavior that they engage in when they're gang stalking. They're doing so while, again, all of this is relevant to what is 20 minutes of documented acts of harassment and terrorism, which is relevant to the mental illness of the entity that's documented. This is in conformity to the pattern of conduct. I'm not making up the P.O.C. I'm not making up this information. I'm not making the people stand there with their shadows surround. I can't make up any of these details. And the entity is doing so because this is the entity that is more addicted and obsessed with me rather than big picture. Take a step back because Tracy Banks is going to be in a courtroom. Eric Spencer is going to be in courtroom. There are the entity that's gang stalking judges, in other words, gang stalking police officers and ambulance operators and firefighters and corrupt officials are going to want to state in the face of the wealth of evidence, proving beyond any reasonable doubt, by the way, that surveillance is underway in an unprecedented manner, but a manner that is clear and palatable for anyone to understand and recognize, and also to see what is necessarily mentally sick and demented behavior that is shared by a corrupt government. Now, on the one hand, there are people that are going to be held accountable based on a pattern of conduct that they share while the demons are gang stalking that economy in, and they would like to suggest and necessarily just disregarding all the evidence, and that never happens in a federal case. It's not going to happen in this case, that they're not engaged in what is targeting me. That they're not demons, that they're not mentally ill. Please don't subject me to a routine, to a battery of mental examinations. Please don't, have me identified by the Department of Justice as a terrorist, as a sex offender. No, it's not funny, but it is funny with regard. It is humorous. It's entertaining with regard to how short-sighted the demons are. All of this is because they are seeking to obstruct what is publishing evidence on the internet that's going on the internet anyway. And big picture, I have years of the same pattern of conduct, this evidence on the internet already. So why are you focused on this excerpt of documentation? You're focused on this little excerpt of evidence because if you don't get this, if you're able to block this documentation, oh, well then, okay, you'll be able to defeat what is a whole body of evidence establishing gang stalking before I added July 20th, 2025 today, because that's the big picture and that's the case. If you can just stop this, all right, because this is the focal point. This is what is going to change everything for the state of California and for the demons who are facing inevitable federal prison and removal from office, disbanding, etc. This piece of evidence is going to change what is the future prospects of this government. This is what the entity is engaging in. And for what? I'm adding defendants. It's adding to the pool of defendants that are specifically identified. Because remember, I'm not just prosecuting just the demons that I'm documenting. There's some days where I only document maybe 15, 3 people, and no American citizen has to go around documenting. You're not doing this in the way that I have. I am establishing precedent. This is letting you know what the government is doing, and through the people of the state, what the people of the state are doing, what demons are doing. Okay, so this is speaking to what is the consistency, and what is my objective is to embarrass as many demons as possible, to specifically identify as many of them, but as specifically and as detailed as possible. Okay, but the ordinary target individual, American citizens that are aware that you have a right under federal law to prosecute a government that's keeping you under surveillance and then targeting you in the ways in which I've shown, for whatever reason, you don't have to go around documenting a whole parking lot full of people. The federal government has a very good understanding about what gang stalking looks like, what that pattern of conduct is, how it's executed, who is necessarily engaged in it. who you are, who your family is, your social circle. This is the default basis of identifying and prosecuting. You have witnessed me not only show you a pattern of conduct, but I have gone, because when you are breaking ground, okay, you're talking about what is establishing precedent, what's making sure that there's no exception. And it's not because I have doubts about there being no exceptions, it's because you're approving the truth of what it is that you have been exposing from the beginning. So with anything that is new, you're going to expose it to what is, we can do this on any day under any circumstances, because there's no exception. It is the pattern of conduct. They are always engaging in the exact same formula all the time, no matter where I'm at, no matter what time of day, no matter who it is that's in front of you. That's what I'm doing. And it is for purposes of establishing precedent. Anyone can trust this formula, because this is the criminal conduct that the demon-possessed are doing in the United States, and it's the government engaged in criminal surveillance. It's demonic activity, okay? But no person, and I don't advise that people go out and try and do what it is that I've done, which is, again, not everybody is called to or is capable of doing what it is that I have captured on the record, okay? Nor did I just put myself in situations. The entity confronted me, and I am enforcing my rights. I'm not one that likes to jump out of airplanes on parachutes. I don't take risks in my life. I don't live a risky lifestyle. The entity placed me under surveillance. The entity targeted me. The entity threatened me, and I defended myself, and I'm enforcing my rights. And there is no demon that's going to stop me from doing that. And so this is where you will have evidence where you witness me confronting gang stalking, demon-possessed police officers. No, I do not encourage anybody to engage in that. But the demons confronted me, and I'm responding to them. Okay, and I don't mince words with Satan. So you will hear me address Satan by name. Okay, Satan is just using a person in a uniform. That's a demon. Okay, and they're engaged in criminal conduct, and they're on the wrong side of history, on the wrong side of the law. And I know that on this side of a federal prosecution, they're going to experience it in real time. You're witnessing that formal process. Okay, this is something, like I said, I did not jump up and volunteer for, but it's something that I'm not going to back down from. It's literally something that I didn't sign up for it. In other words, that's what I'm stating. So it is currently 11:22 p.m. And the entity is engaged in federal stalking. And this is because the entity has no legal strategy. You're not dealing with reasonable people. You're dealing with very highly unstable and irrational beings who are not normal, and they're not actually functioning with a healthy set, okay? And that's why you have this sort of conduct where you are adding evidence against yourself. You're adding, and there are people that are paying high consequences. They're adding evidence against themselves. There are societies, organizations that are going to want to back away from, having nothing. No, I've already prosecuted you, and I don't even need to know your name. I don't have to be in the room where you're literally, I know you're monitoring me. I know you know who I am. I know you're targeting me, and I know who you work through. Now, the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct and is focused on me uploading an extra 35 minutes of documentation tonight, and is missing the big picture, okay? And this is what is the benefit of documenting and prosecuting mentally ill people who are engaged in life-threatening, demented behavior that is a threat to the public, okay? Because they're not able to ever recognize the big picture and make sure that have any sort of strategy. Their strategy is just stalking. Their strategy is just monitoring. They're just demons. Okay, they don't exercise common sense. They don't exercise self-control. They don't have any sort of alternative either. The entity is engaging in what is exhibiting severe demented behaviors, and it's also demented criminal conduct. And it's the government's behavior and the government's conduct while it's in facilitating it and sharing in that with a mentally ill civilian population. Okay, that's what's relevant to sensational activity inside of my hotel room while a demon is an engineered light stalking outside of my hotel room, aware of everything that's going on inside of my hotel room. The same hotel room, which is at this hotel where I'm documenting the fake sun from 7 in the morning until 7 in the evening. That's relevant to, in context to everything that's happening, including the methods of what is maintenance of audible activity, noise, which is harassment by the government, pursuant to domestic terrorism, all of the demented and demonic means of maintaining noise and engineered light. which is psychologically harmful, especially as a population practices it. A mentally sick population. This is actually special needs. Okay, special needs is more than that which you have been exposed and what has been defined to you. Special needs is demonstrated by those who are severely demented and unhinged, and what is also fully exposed, maintaining a level of secrecy that's also sick. But also when they have faced what is full exposure and their obsession is no less maniacal, that's speaking to what is fully exposed, which is the mental illness that they never wanted to be exposed in the first place. Okay, they being the demons. These are demons. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you're understanding what it is that I'm documenting. Presence in the path. This is all criminal. And how is it criminal? Because the government is gang stalking through the people of the state. The government is gang stalking without any warrant or probable cause. And the government's engaging in gang stalking, which is demonic. And the government has no, in other words, no warrant or probable cause for economy in to maintain an establishment where it is gang stalking, where it is profiting from gang stalking, with its gang stalking patrons at its establishment, with the gang stalking government surrounding the establishment, in the same way that the police do not have any warrant or probable cause under state and federal constitutions to sit outside in the parking lot and wire my hotel room and listen to everything that I'm doing, keeping me under surveillance, maintaining any investigation. That's called that's criminal surveillance. And this is what the government is doing when they're gang stalking you. They're doing that and more, because they're doing it under a fake sun. They're doing it in what is engineered light. They're doing it to psychologically torture you. They're doing it in hopes and in furtherance of seeking to accomplish what is your mental and emotional instability. This is why the demon-possessed target you in the way in which they do, while the government is keeping you under surveillance and psychologically torturing you. Okay, this is criminal conduct that the people of the state are sharing in. They don't have any rights to be at their homes gang stalking. You don't have a right to be out in public gang stalking, which are, by the way, facilitating venues where the government's engaged in criminal surveillance. Nobody has any constitutional protections, while the government has no constitutional authority to gang stalk you. Okay, it's currently 11:27 p.m. and this is the entity sharing in what is, again, 11:24 p.m. 3 minutes ago, while I was in a train of thought, so I didn't interrupt my thoughts. The entity, again, engaging in what is gang stalking, another iteration of the same thing, maintaining the elements of monitoring, another demon walking by my hotel room, or at least crossing path because the entity is maintaining sensational activity. So while I'm standing inside of my hotel room, boom, 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 vibration of somebody that's walking by my hotel room. At least this is what a normal person would assume. But then the question is, how is a vibration or any sort of activity, sensational activity created when you're walking outside of my hotel room? Okay, then you're getting to what is harassment, psychological torture, domestic terrorism, and the entity is repeatedly doing that. And this is the entity that has no perspective with regard to what is a prosecution as a mentally ill population and government body that's engaging in what is domestic terrorism in the United States. And they will be treated as the enemy to the country that any other foreign terrorist represents, while they are gang stalking American citizens. This is what an entity is doing with this level of impunity, okay? And doing it as a population. These are the ticking time bombs, by the way, that fill the country. This is the population that you need to be made aware of. And they're in the government. So this is what is relevant, and also the purpose of me publishing my documentation on the internet. Okay, and it is currently, again, 11:29 p.m. The entity engaging in what is harassment and domestic terrorism, psychological torture. As I stand inside of my hotel room, ongoing vibration under my feet while someone is gang stalking me outside of my hotel room. Okay, and doing so while the stalkers know that I'm documenting, publishing, they're stalking me onto the internet. Okay, and this is all done with, again, a lack of perspective. I'm going to publish it. The government is already prosecuted. The case against the state of California has been complete. I'm going to prosecute the government for obstruction of justice. The repeated acts of kidnapping, seeking to delay justice, seeking to deny me justice, while the entity has been engaged in what is stealing my evidence, suppressing my evidence, doing things like the federal government is doing, sitting back and watching, as opposed to doing their job, most of which I completed for the corrupt government. Okay, so the government can't state, I'm sorry, we don't have any information, we can't prove anything, because I completed the case. I gave them the case, okay? So this is the entity that's going to be prosecuted for this and much more. It's currently, again, 11:30 p.m. at Economy Inn. This is federal stalking on the venue of the internet, and it's federal stalking done with the intent to obstruct justice, all right? Trying to obstruct my ability to access Wi-Fi. While you don't even, remember, this is the government that's engaging in surveillance. So this is stripping everybody that's exploiting the Constitution. Oh, I have a freedom of speech right to be at this hotel and to have this job and to be at the gap. No, they don't. They're all gang stalking. None of them are under any sort of constitutional protection whatsoever. They're fully exposed. All right, it's 10:31 p.m. This is all right, the entity concentrating sirens for approximately 2.5 seconds as I capture sex offenders that are engaging in the perpetual sex offense monitoring in a private space. This includes the people that stayed inside of room 244. And as I capture the sex offender gang stalking, engaging in what is a business transaction with Economy Inn, as I capture this screenshot, which is a sex offender that is sharing in what is the perpetual sex offense by public entity. That public entity at the same time is maintaining the use of sirens right here at Euclid Avenue at the 60 freeway, which is amplified in volume inside of my hotel room, where the engineer light is present all over. This is the entity that's using sirens as a means of surveillance. Okay, it's repeated sounds of sirens where the entity is not engaged in what is traveling anywhere. The entity is already present. The sirens aren't coming toward. The sirens aren't traveling away. The sirens are starting with simultaneity as I capture the screenshot, just like they were as I was logging onto the Wi-Fi, and the sirens also stop 2.5 seconds later with regard to targeting with simultaneity, and also targeting with regard to audible activity creation where I am at monitoring, and that's federal stalking conduct. That is criminal facilitation for federal stalking by the people of the state as well, including the establishment Economy Inn. Again, the entity is doing so. These are demons that are driving ambulances, American Medical Response. The City of Ontario does the same thing through the Ontario Police Department. The City of Ontario does the same thing through the Ontario Fire Department. Okay, so this is the demon possessed that are gang stalking using emergency vehicles to engage in federal stalking. It is currently, this is again the evidence that's removing the gang stalking Mayor Paul Leon. It is 11:35 p.m. P.O.C.